What celebrity did bad things but everyone forgot what they did because they're famous? Every time something like this is posted, no one cares about my comment on how Sean Kingston, the American/Jamaican rapper, has sexually assaulted multiple women near where I live and has gotten away with it every time by threatening legal action. If anyone actually gives a shit, I can link proof from a girl explaining what happened to her, but I will censor some things for her sake. Basically has doing rap shows and then Bill Cosbying girls in the area, or you can just look up on Google Sean Kingston sexual assault and many hits will come up. Fuck you Sean Kingston, your music's dog shit. Here's a list I compiled earlier this year. Jimmy Page was 26 when he started calling 14-year-old Lori Maddox his girlfriend. Mick Jagger had a few rounds with Maddox around the same time. Also of the Rolling Stones, Bill Wyman started dating 13-year-old Mandy Smith when he was 47. He got her mother's permission. Steven Tyler convinced the mother of 16-year-old Julia Holcomb to make him her legal guardian, then snorted blow from next to her hospital bed while she was having an abortion. David Bowie, the beloved, managed to get Lori Maddox's virginity and got her to bring her 15-year-old friend along, in addition to many other underage girls. Edit. Apparently this one is hotly contested. I want to believe David was better than that, but I'm leaving it in with this caveat, because I'm on mobile and can't prove one way or the other right now. Jerry Lee Lewis of course married his 13-year-old cousin. She still believed in Santa on their honeymoon. Ariana Grande Blackfishes licked some donuts in a store that she never intended to buy, has alluded to her quinceanera, and implies she is Latina when she's white. Nicki Minaj is currently dating a registered sex offender. He served time in prison for raping a 16-year-old at Gun-and-Niffer Point, and another stint for aiding/attempting and murder. Cardi B. She has a huge ass list of problematic things she said and done. Somehow these women are role models and influencers. Jimmy Savile. For those unaware, huge TV and radio star in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Still popped up now and again, until he died in 2011. After he died, massive allegations about him came out, the vast majority of which were proven to be true. AB*SED multiple children, both sexes, many ages, while working on TV shows, etc. But also was known as a charity man who did actually raise millions for children's hospitals, etc. But it was just a cover to gain access. He even had keys and an official advisory position at Broadmoor, a high security psychiatric hospital in the UK, which allowed him to visit patients at will. Unproven, but he's also had connections with children's homes where kids went missing, quite possibly murdered. What is staggering about this is that it was known and often talked about while he was alive. He even makes admissions in his autobiographies. People took him to task over it. He was even questioned by police multiple times, but he managed to get away with it. Still astounding looking back, and there were massive investigations into everything from the BBC to the NHS after he died. Drive. Seuss was having an affair while his wife was battling depression and cancer. When she committed suicide, she left him a note that said, "Dear Ted, what has happened to us? I don't know. I feel myself in a spiral, going down, into a black hole from which there is no escape, no brightness. And loud in my ears from every side I hear, failure, failure, failure. I love you so much. I'm too old and enmeshed in everything you do and are, that I cannot conceive of life without you. My going will leave quite a rumor, but you can say I was overworked and overwrought. Your reputation with your friends and fans will not be harmed. Sometimes think of the fun we had all through the years." Stone Cold Steve Austin. People will argue that he seems to have changed his ways, but I don't feel like that played any part in his resurgence. He just started a good podcast and continued to be entertaining. I'm not saying I want his domestic violence history to be dug back up and ruin his career, because I do think people deserve second chances, but it's the kind of thing that has and continues to damn other people while he gets away with it for some reason. I think you'll know the song Despacito, who is performed by Luis Fonsi. Well, this little piece of shit was married to a beautiful woman who had breast cancer. During her entire process of chemo he wasn't there, and he even told her, when she had a breast removed, that he didn't want her as a woman. This ended up in a divorce. Ozzy Osbourne once tried to kill Sharon. Elvis dated a 14-year-old girl then, when she had a child, mentioned he was unable to love a woman with a child. Even after he started dating adult women he treated them like crap. David Bowie slept with, and dated a 13 to 14-year-old, who he also cheated on with multiple men and women at the same time. Steven Tyler adopted an, already very troubled, teenage girl he met backstage, had sex with her, and pressured her into having an abortion, and was generally rather abusive towards her. Jay-Z stabbed a producer, Rivera. Chris Brown beat up Rihanna. Gandhi was actually incredibly racist. Johnny Cash was almost responsible for wiping out an endangered species of bird after his truck caught fire and he fled the scene, which caused a square mile of forest to burn down, taking out half the population of the species. MORE on the topic of this particular misdemeanor, his nephew who was with him at the time, said that the fire wasn't accidental as Johnny claimed, and instead was started in an attempt for Johnny to stay warm, but because he was doped up on drugs, he failed to notice the fire getting out of control. Cash was also quoted as saying, "I didn't do it, my truck did, and it's dead, so you can't question it. And I don't care about your damn yellow buzzards." Steve Jobs pretended his daughter wasn't his 4 years, until he was sued to admit he was, when she was 8 years old, and even then he was still often neglectful. Newt Gingrich, Republican politician, married his high school geometry teacher when he was 19, and she was 26. Had multiple affairs, and while she was in the hospital undergoing treatment for cancer he came into her hospital room and told her he was divorcing her. Friends of Gingrich report that Newt told them that she wasn't pretty enough to be the wife of a president, which he planned to be. He proceeds to divorce her, and then doesn't pay child support, and first wife has to get help from the church to make ends meet. I say first wife, because he gets his divorce, and in 6 months marries his second wife. But while with second wife has an affair with his staffer. During this affair, the massive hypocrite leads the impeachment proceedings of Bill Clinton for lying about an affair. Gets divorced and 4 months later marries his latest wife. He also blamed past infidelities on his passion for this country. Oh, and he is credited with driving a wedge between the parties in politics, and being a leader in Christian family values. You can currently find him as a popular pundit on news programs. George Wallace, the infamous pro-segregation governor of Alabama in the 60s, did not inform his wife that her doctor diagnosed her with cancer. Doctors during this time often told patients' relatives of their cancer diagnosis instead of the patient, especially if the patient was female. The reason was that she was running for governor as a surrogate for him, since he had reached his term limits, and he thought that the diagnosis would negatively affect her chances of winning. She ended up finding out about it 4 years later during a visit to a gynecologist, but unfortunately the cancer had progressed to the point that she died from it 3 years after learning that she had cancer, and that her husband had known about it. He ended up successfully getting the term limits repealed, and went on to serve a few more terms as governor. People forget about this, I'm assuming, because of all of the other shitty things he did. Chris Brown. He beat the daylights out of Rihanna and everyone made that excuse that she had a bad mouth, or he was young and needs time to grow. People still make music with him now, even though he's been caught stalking the mother of his child and allegations of abuse. But the guy still has a thriving career. John Lennon. He preached peace and love, yet he was abusive, jealous, a terrible father to his first son, a cheater. The list goes on. We talk about FB happy families who only post pics of all the good things when behind the scenes they are a disaster. I feel like he was the original of this before social media. Obvs. Yes. Lennon lovers and Beatlemaniacs are going to come out of the woodwork and slam this comment. I don't care. He's a piece of shit and people are in love with his facade. You won't change my mind on this. Also, F Yoko. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll himself, was routinely in trouble with underage girls, and even the fabled romance with Priscilla is a tale of sexual interference. She was 14 when they met. Chuck Berry was arrested for crossing state lines with a 14-year-old prostitute. He was also recording women in the washroom of the restaurant he owned. Courtney Love says she gave Ted Nugent a blowjob when she was 12. He also adopted a 17-year-old, so he could bang her without getting charged with kidnapping. He even wrote a song about avoiding pedophilia charges. Anthony Kiedis, Red Hot Chili Peppers, wrote songs about it too. Catholic schoolgirl's rule is about his hooking up with a 14-year-old at 23. Iggy Pop also wrote songs about sleeping with 13-year-olds too. Check out the lyrics to Look Away. Marvin Gaye knocked up his wife's 15-year-old niece. Don Henley, the Eagles, was charged after paramedics found him with two naked girls, aged 15 and 16. Ariana Grande. She went to a donut shop in the middle of the night, licked the donuts when the worker was busy doing something and was distracted, and got the person fired. I'm still salty because I used to get donuts there all the time in high school. Not to mention, who the fuck does that? We forgot how shitty it was, but think about the sort of person who would do that. Tarantino. He spit in Uma Thurman's face, WTF, and almost got her killed. He convinced her to drive around a track in a car that she wasn't comfortable with, but she did it because she trusted him. He drove the car himself, but he didn't take it around the route she was supposed to go on, and there was a sharp turn and it almost killed her. It permanently fucked up her neck and both her knees, and Uma Thurman said it was because he insisted she do her own stunts. Is no one gonna mention Caitlyn Jenner hitting that pregnant woman and forcing her into traffic, then getting the Woman of the Year award? I guess I remembered that wrong. Turns out it was an elderly woman, and the woman died when she was hit by a Hummer. Also, remember that Brendan Schaub, the millionaire podcaster / comedian, spit in someone's face and then threw them through a sliding glass door because they asked him to stop eating his food? Look into it.